Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. And I'm here with John Chancellor from Peaks the Soul, who's a friend and mentor and someone I've known for about, John, is it 20 years yet that we've known each other?
Probably about 15.
Let's just say I remember when we both had all of our hair and teeth.
That's a good way to put it.
So John is the author of a book. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about it. And it's a collection of very practical, valuable wisdom in the form of quotations and essays. It's been very interesting for me. Sometimes John coaches me on things, and he uses some of these essays and quotes to crystallize and help me to remember some of the insights he wants to give me. And so periodically I have him on the show to talk about a couple of these insights and little quotations of wisdom. So say the name of the book, where people could find it, and then maybe we can talk about a quote or two.
Okay, the name of the book is Words to Live and Work By. And it's a collection of 45 essays and over about 300 quotes. And most of the quotes are really insightful, deep. They have a lesson within themselves. The problem with a quote, or the problem that I see with most quotes, is that we hear it, and because it's so short and succinct, we kind of smile and say, yeah, that's true. But then it doesn't stick with us. And so I created some little essays to generally talk in more depth about the concepts around some of the quotes. The story that I want to share today is an essay that's actually not in the book. There are only 45 essays in the book, but I thought this one might be helpful to your audience anyway, and I wanted to share it. And this is about my high school football coach. It starts off with a quote, one of my favorite quotes from Aesop, or one of my favorite stories from Aesop is about the tortoise and the hare, the race, and everybody knows that story. I think everybody does. And the moral of the story is slow and steady wins the race. So I want to talk about the game of football as it was played when I was in high school in the late 1950s. If you had a time machine and were able to travel back, you would not recognize, or you would hardly recognize the game of football that was played then compared to what we know as football now. The game of football now is designed to engage the spectator. In the late 50s, the game of football was much more concerned with the fundamentals of the game, the blocking and tackle. The running plays were about 70, maybe 75% of the plays. The passing plays were probably only 20, 25% of the plays, whereas in the college and pro games today, it's just reverse. They're primarily passing games because that's where you get all the excitement. But at one of the team meetings, the coach said something that I still remember today. It was very profound. He said, if we could gain 3 yards on each and every play, we would win every game we played. Now, if you're not a football fan, you probably need to know a little bit about football. And in football, the offensive team has 4 downs to gain 10 yards. And if they gain 10 yards in the 4 downs, they make a first down and get to repeat. And what the coach was saying was obviously quite true, that when we had the ball, if we gained 3 yards every time, we would march down the field, score a touchdown, and repeat the process. No team ever scores every time they get the ball. And so what he was stressing was not doing anything that set us back. Make sure that we made the progress on each and every play. Now, I've thought about his comments long after. I will have to confess that I went out for football because if you were a male in high school in the Deep South, you played football unless you were in the band, and I was not musically inclined, so I went out for all the sports. I wasn't one of the star players, but I made the star players better by being good in practice.
What position did you play?
I played end when I was in high school. I was fairly tall and very light. I think I weighed probably 150 pounds in full uniform. But I have thought about his comments long after the meeting. And of course, he was right about the football game. But what I thought about was, how does this concept apply to life? How does this concept apply to the things we do on a daily basis? Are we making small but important advances on each action we take? Or are we playing sloppy, missing tackles, missing blocks, and having setbacks on half of our activities where we should be going forward? The game that we played back in the 50s was not the wide open, exciting game that's played today. But the lesson from the coach was very important today. Take an example of becoming financially independent. Most people equate this to becoming a millionaire. This goal is not as far-fetched if you adopt the 3 yards per play approach. That is, if you decide to make a little progress toward your goal each and every day. But what do most people do? For the first few days or weeks, they take action toward their goal. Typically, though, they give up very quickly. They start down one path, get bored or discouraged. First time the going gets rough, they jump to some other path. Or they try to reach their goal too quick by making a big, spectacular play. In football today, we equate that to the long pass. And when that fails, they try for even more spectacular play, or they simply give up. So my observation and lesson from this advice that my coach gave me some 60 years ago is almost any person can reach whatever goal they set for themselves. They will adopt a 3 yards per play attitude. Slow and steady, make steady progress. Avoid those things that you think are going to give you the quick win, that are going to give you the quick advantage. You're going to get there much faster. The slow way is actually the fast way. I've found in almost any goal you're pursuing, trying to take shortcuts, trying to get there faster, just generally doesn't work. Success in whatever you are after is not a destination. You don't wake up one day and get a certificate that declares you're a success. Success is a journey. A successful life is no more than a collection of successful days, weeks, months, and then years. And today is the only day you have to work toward your goal. So make today count. Make today count in that you're taking small, consistent steps, and avoid the big losses that so many people encounter in whatever they're doing. How do you see that applying to your audience, Ben?
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts about how it applies to my audience.
Share them with us, please.
Of course, I think it's brilliant. I often tell people that the fastest way to lose weight is slowly. This makes me less marketable, by the way. I've been thinking long and hard about this because, I don't really sell what the market wants. The market wants pills and potions and powders that will make people lose weight 30 pounds in 30 days and get ready for the wedding. And, you can have your ideal body by the fall. What I've discovered over the years is that creates a type of a manic depressive panicked lifestyle when it comes to health and diet. And that when you are in a panic like that, your reptilian brain, which is the seat of the feast and famine response, is more likely to say, there's an emergency here. We're not getting enough calories. We don't have enough resources. And then the first moment that you're overwhelmed with decisions to make, or didn't get enough sleep, or didn't drink enough water, or didn't get enough nutrition, your brain says, well, this is all well and good that you have all these long-term goals and very reasoned out ways of thinking about food and behaving with food. But you know what? Screw it. We need this now. Just hand over the chocolate and nobody gets hurt. And I found that primary among the things that you need to do to exit that mentality is to focus more so on eliminating yo-yo dieting, which means eliminating fast dieting, unless the doctor says it's urgent, eliminating food obsession, and eliminating overeating and binge eating. Like if you learn to flood your body with nutrition on a regular basis, you're not skipping meals and going on the latest fad diet. And, you're really focused on a couple of very simple rules that make you feel in control and safe and keep you moving in the right direction so you can get your 3 yards every day. That as a byproduct, most people who do that consistently get to the weight or approximately the way that they want to get to. It's the panic that does people in, There's this old discussion about Socrates being stopped on the road by a young pupil. And it says, Socrates, I really need to get to Mount Olympus. How do I get to Mount Olympus? And Socrates says, well, it's easy. Just make sure that every step you take is in the direction of Mount Olympus.
Absolutely. Just make sure you're going in the correct direction. Yes.
I had another mentor who put this to me, and he said, look, direction is more important than speed. Like if you're going in the right direction and you're going slowly, you're going to get where you want to go. But if you're jumping around and turning this way and that way and saying, maybe I can get this fuel, maybe I can get that fuel, you're going to live your life in a panic going around in circles. Direction is much more important than speed. I've got one more story, not from my world of helping people with food, but from the days when I was teaching marketing. And I had this student who became very famous. His name is Ryan Levesque. We worked together for a little while. He actually coached people for me. And then he took my ideas and ran with them because I decided I didn't really want to teach marketing anymore. I was more interested in doing it than teaching it and figuring out how I could help people with what I knew. Ryan, on the other hand, really wanted to teach what I'd been teaching. And I said, with my blessing, I told him to go for it. Very quickly, he got to the Inc. 500, multi-million-dollar company, all kinds of success. And a couple of years after, when I asked him his biggest insight, he said, well, Glenn, you're going to wish it was that I had this really critical insight about teaching, or that I invented something amazing, which just took off, or that I used your technique 100%. And, it was just so brilliant that the results spoke for themselves. But it really wasn't any of those things. What I did was I adopted a philosophy in the whole company. And I said, how can we grow 5% this month? Because if we grow 5% per month, we're going to be one of the fastest growing companies in the world.
Wow.
That's what he did. That's how he did it. Ryan, if you're listening, congratulations, buddy.
That's fantastic. Again, I think the lesson from my football coach that I've remembered all these years is very important. Make sure you're making slow and steady progress. If you gain the 3 yards on every play, you'll win every game you are in, and it applies to whatever you're doing. And so I'll end with a quote that I like from Benjamin Franklin, Poor Richard's Almanac. He that pursues 2 hares at once does not catch one and lets the other go.
There you go. That was the hardest thing for me to learn, but it's absolutely true.
Absolutely, yes. Focus on one goal, pursue one activity. If you're chasing 2 rabbits, you're not going to catch one, you let the other one go.
And pursue it methodically, relentlessly, but calmly and slowly.
Absolutely.
When it comes to food and weight, one thing is to recognize you're no longer gaining weight as a sign of progress. A lot of times people, particularly in midlife, when they come to me, they've been steadily gaining weight every year, sometimes quickly because they're really binging, but sometimes it's just that slow creep because of your metabolism and lack of activity and things like that. I find that people don't recognize it as progress when they've arrested the overeating, they've kind of solidified their nutrition, and they're not quite losing weight yet, but they're not gaining weight anymore. And if you want to get to New York, but you're headed to Los Angeles on a steamboat, when you've made the decision to turn around and you successfully turned around, first of all, it takes a little while to get the ship turned around, and you're going to drift in the wrong direction for a little while because you were headed to London. But once you do turn around, it's going to take a little while to get back to where you were, but it's still progress that you turned around. It's
Absolutely.
still tremendous progress. The ship is facing in the right direction. Okay, terrific, John.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.